Good evening and welcome to Education 780, the Dissertation Proposal Seminar class. I'd like to spend a little time with you this evening in this narrated PowerPoint to give you an introduction to our course here at William Woods University. Tonight's class will begin with introductions here in just a minute. We'll have a very short history of dissertations and the purpose of a dissertation. We'll talk about what it takes to write a dissertation proposal and a complete dissertation draft. We'll talk about what we mean by a draft dissertation proposal, and we'll also visit about any remaining EDD courses that you have left in this program after you finish this particular course. Tonight's class will also talk about how it works with chairs and committees, and we'll talk about the various components or parts of the dissertation. In a separate narrated video, I will go through the syllabus with you so that you have a better idea of expectations for this class. And then lastly, we'll talk about what it is that you need to do to prepare for next class meeting, which is week 2. I'll go ahead and start with introductions by introducing myself. Again, I'm Leslie Trogdon. I've been with William Woods University now for about 4 years. My previous history was in Columbia Public Schools, where I worked there for 13 years as their Director of School Improvement. It was there that I had an opportunity to coordinate curriculum, professional development, as well as the MSIP accreditation process. Took the district through 4 MSIP cycles, and also worked with them led the process for 4 comprehensive school improvement plans, the strategic plan for the district. Prior to that, I worked for the Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for 7 years. I was an MSIP supervisor as well as a federal program supervisor. That's where I gleaned all of my knowledge about the MSIP process and the strategic planning that the state has in place for school districts. Also had an opportunity to support and help districts implement their Title I funding, Title II, and all of the other title programs. Prior to that, I was a classroom teacher. That's how I began my education career, and I was taught in Columbia Public Schools for 10 years as a 3rd grade teacher for 5 years and a 5th grade teacher for 5 years. So that's a little bit about myself. What I hope that I get from this course is that I learn more about the dissertation writing process. It's always a journey. I always tell my students I learn as much from you as you learn from me. So we will learn together in this course, and by the end of this course, hopefully you have a better idea of what it takes and the preparation and the various components that are needed in order for you to put a strong dissertation in place. So what I would like you to do tonight for me is to write and email me an introduction of yourself, a little bit about your experiences, and tell me a little bit about who you are and what you hope to get from this course. You can do this in a bulleted list if you'd like, or if you want to write in the form of a paragraph, that is fine as well. I'm going to turn off the camera right now so that you can, as we go through the slides, you can actually read the slides without my picture showing. So I'll turn that off now. And here we are on the next slide. I'd like to go over just, defining a dissertation, because lots of people have different pictures in their mind of what a dissertation is. So I got this definition from Oxford University Press, and it says it's a long essay on a particular subject, especially one written as a requirement for the Doctor of Philosophy degree. So I would agree with that definition. It is a long paper on a very narrowed topic. We do require, as part of the EDD program, a dissertation. We don't call that a Doctor of Philosophy degree because that's what's called a PhD. So what is the difference between a PhD and an EDD? I like to say that an EDD is much more practitioner-based. It's a scholarly subject. It's a scholarly paper. It still involves scholarly research review of various dissertations and articles about your topic that you write about in Chapter 2. It also includes a very rigorous methods chapter 2, where it might be a quantitative, a qualitative, or a mixed method study. But it is geared towards the education field and is much more practitioner based to help our education field progress is the purpose of an EDD. So excuse me, whatever you choose to research, we always ask you, how is that going to benefit your colleagues who work in the field of education? A PhD is much more philosophical based. A lot of times people will get their PhD because they're interested in teaching in a university and continuing their research. A lot of times that when people work, especially in larger universities, they're required to publish. So a PhD gives you that credibility and means that you will continue to publish after your dissertation is finished. Sometimes with the EDD, we might continue to publish, and we encourage people to do that, but it's not necessarily a requirement. So that's a little bit of a difference between a PhD and an EDD. A purpose of a dissertation with our EDD program, that's an opportunity for you to apply your knowledge, your critical thinking, and your research abilities. So that by the time you do all of that and you write your dissertation, you will become an academic expert in your narrowed topic or area of interest. And you will have the opportunity, when it's all said and done, with your defense, to demonstrate that expertise to others. And so that's, again, the purpose of a dissertation. And I like to say that whatever you choose is a topic that you have passion for and interest and possibly influence, so that you can demonstrate that expertise to others to benefit the field of education. There are really, throughout the whole dissertation writing process, there are really two distinct pieces to that process. There's what's called the proposal phase and the completed draft. So let's visit a little bit about the proposal phase. That involves your first 3 chapters that you've written in your dissertation. And that is written before you do any of your own research, such as your own quantitative study that you use statistical test, or your qualitative research that you try to do that might involve semi-structured interviews. So your proposal phase is you having that opportunity to present your first 3 chapters to your committee. The next phase of the process, after you pass the proposal phase, is what's called the completed draft, or the defense part of your dissertation. And that's the defense piece is where you present all 5 chapters of your dissertation. And it's written after you have completed your own research. So after you've reported your results in chapter 4 from your own research, where you conducted your own statistical tests for a quantitative study, or you conducted your own qualitative research for your qualitative study. So we'll reference these 2 things throughout the course. We'll talk about the proposal phase. We'll talk a little bit about the defense or the completed draft phase. So if you're not quite sure about the differences between these 2, be sure and ask me any kind of clarifying questions. And again, we'll revisit this throughout the whole course. So what are some frequently asked questions when we write a dissertation? So we'll visit some of these questions here in the next few slides. What's the most important thing needed to complete a dissertation? I can offer you advice. Maybe others will offer different advice. But my advice, what works what worked for me to complete my dissertation was the fact that I dedicated a set schedule. I also dedicated not only a set schedule, but a place to work where I was comfortable, where I was not distracted, where I could keep to that schedule and hold myself accountable in the kind of comfortable environment that worked for me best to do my research and my writing. So that's what I recommend. I also recommend that you have passion about your topic and that it is a topic that you can live with for a period of time. I would also say to you that the most important thing needed to complete a dissertation is openness and willingness to accept feedback from your chair, your committee, and possibly even your colleagues. We always recommend that you, as you're developing your proposal and your dissertation, that you have others read it. Lastly, I think what's important needed to complete a dissertation is that you have an editor. Whether you're a good writer or maybe writing isn't an area of strength. We all need editors. And to go along with that, if you're not comfortable doing a quantitative dissertation, then you need to find someone and you want to do a quantitative dissertation, you need to find someone that is comfortable and an expert at doing quantitative analysis. Because you're going to have to be able to, as you talk in your proposal phase, in your dissertation about your dissertation, you're going to need to talk about the interpretation of the statistical test that you ran for your qualitative analysis. Other people have other advice, and so we'll again be referencing this all throughout the course. Good writing is hard work. I cannot emphasize enough that it takes practice to write, and hopefully your courses have benefited you to practice good writing, and you've gotten feedback from others to improve your writing, but it takes practice, and in order to write a dissertation, it takes good writing. So here are some other things. From the Lunenburg and Irby text that you have for this class, they talk about interest, having that passion, having an interest in your topic. They talk about significance. What significance is your topic going to bring to education? Other advice that they offer is that if you're doing a quantitative dissertation, that you have data that already exists. We call that pre-existing data, so that you don't have to spend a long time waiting for your data. And again, we'll visit about that throughout this course. It's also important that you have knowledge and skills to put a dissertation together, and that you have managerial skills. You can manage yourself and discipline yourself to write a dissertation. So here are important components that I've already mentioned: setting aside a time and a place for your work. The ability to organize your work is very important, because you're going to need at least 75 to 100 sources to help you review your Chapter 2. And how are you going to organize all of those research-based articles, peer-reviewed articles? How are you going to organize those dissertations? Are you going to print all of them off and store them in nice, neat files? Or are you going to organize all of those files electronically with the available technology that we have today? It's up to you what works for you. There's no one way that's a right way or a wrong way. You'll need to set deadlines, you'll need to stick to them, and of course you'll have to have that tremendously important support network that allows you to do all of those things, setting aside time and place, whether that be family or friends, significant others, or colleagues. Another topic that's important is, how will I choose and narrow my topic? That depends on the individual, but it is truly based on often research that you have done. So where you search for articles and dissertations on maybe a more broader topic. And once you read those things, that's going to help you narrow your topic. It's normal for a student to maybe start off with too broad of a topic, and they need to work on narrowing that topic to be more specific. It's also common for students to tell us about a topic that they want to research, and their topic includes more than one topic in their idea. And so narrowing is choosing a very specific topic and not having to do it all in this particular study. So that happens often with students where they think they're just researching one topic, and it turns out that there are several different topics within their topic. And so, your chair can help you narrow your topic, but it also involves you letting the research help you define what your narrowed topic should be. Your text talks a little bit more about that. So make sure that you use that text to help you understand that just a little bit better, and certainly ask me any particular questions. We get this next question a lot. How many pages will my dissertation be? That is up to the individual and based on the topic and the research that's available on that topic. We see dissertations that range anywhere from 100 pages to 200 pages. I don't think I've seen one that especially with the EDD program, that goes over 200 pages. But, it is, like the definition told us, a lengthy paper. And there's a method to the madness that we're going to help you understand the different components and what those pages should consist of. We also get this question: how long will it take to write a dissertation? Well, that depends on the individual also. It also depends on the topic. So I can tell you that William Woods University has done some research with their own EDD students. We've had this program since, I think, 2012, 2013. And we kind of did, for all of those students who finished, we came up with an average of, and actually the average student takes about 2 years to write the dissertation. So, a lot of folks think that it can be done in a year, but that is a really challenging task to get a dissertation written in a year. So on average, at least with our students, and I think this is pretty comparable to other universities, it takes about 2 years. We've had students where it's taken anywhere from 3 to 5 years. So again, it just depends on your situation, what your topic is, and again, we can visit about this a little bit later if you have more questions. This question we get quite a bit. Should I do a quantitative research for my dissertation, or should that be a qualitative study, or should we employ both quantitative and qualitative within the same dissertation, which is a mixed methods research study? Again, that depends on your topic, and your Chapter 2 Lit Review should really help guide what that decision is. So other research that's already been done on this particular topic, what are the gaps in the research? And sometimes that defines whether that should be a quantitative study or a qualitative study or a mixed methods study. So it's certainly something that you and your chair will discuss, but that may not be discussed right at the beginning of your study because you haven't had a chance to do your Chapter 2 Lit Review. So I tell my students often that don't get hung up on whether this should be a quantitative or a qualitative study until you've had the opportunity to really do your Lit Review to see what research is out there on the field. I'll give an example. We all know that quantitative research sometimes is all about the numbers and doesn't get to the breadth and depth of a qualitative study. So you may come across a dissertation where a quantitative study has been done, and one of their recommendations for further research is that more in-depth interviews be done on this topic to see if the interviews support what the numbers said in the dissertation. So that's an example of letting the research guide what type of study you should do. I will also say that with quantitative, you need to be comfortable with quantitative research and running statistical tests in SPSS, and also being able to interpret those statistics or quantitative analyses with SPSS, because again, you're going to demonstrate your expertise on your topic, and you have to be able to talk about your quantitative analysis for your dissertation. So that's something for you to also think about. And I guess I'll reverse it. You need to be comfortable, if you want to do with qualitative research, you need to be comfortable in doing those interviews that are sometimes a little bit more intensive than running quantitative research. So again, we can discuss that later. But Lunenburg and Irby is an excellent resource. And so I encourage you to keep this course text, don't sell it. And the other resources on the ALNet page, you need to keep, because after this course ends, you will be referring to those resources, and certainly once you take your written exam, you'll be referring to those texts as well. So Lunenburg and Irby is a very important text for you. The text helps with organizing, writing, and researching. It explains content for each dissertation chapter. So what does it take to write a chapter 1? What are the components for chapter 1? What does it take for chapter 2, 3, 4, and 5? So it's a resource again throughout the dissertation process. With the text, please remember to focus on the structure and the format of the writing presented in the examples throughout the text. Again, it talks about what are the components for chapter 1. The examples, and it gives examples from some dissertations that have been written. Not all of those examples are education-based. So that's why we say focus on the structure and what Lunenburg and Irby say need to be the format of writing a dissertation. APA style is extremely important in this particular class with your assignments. So everything will be written in APA, and this is a part of each rubric on each of those assignments. So we've put some ALNet or some APA resources on the left-hand side of the ALNet screen. If you're not quite familiar with APA, with in-text citations or how to cite references on your bibliography page, then please visit these resources. Extremely, extremely important. On the lower left-hand side of your ALNet page is a document called the Dissertation Handbook. This specifies what William Woods University expectations are for a dissertation, all the way from including what the margins should be, the fonts and the font sizes, and the organization of the dissertation. That is something that you'll want to make sure that you have kind of like your Bible right beside you as you're writing your dissertation. So make sure that if you want to print that resource, that would be a good resource to print, or certainly file away electronically. We'll go over a little bit more about the assessment process for this course, but you will get specific feedback on each of the assignments with rubrics and edited drafts by me as your instructor. So again, we'll visit this more in the syllabus, but the rubric should help guide you on what the expectations are for each of the assignments. Let's visit a little bit about the remaining courses once this particular course ends. Again, you're in the dissertation proposal seminar class now. After that, you'll have, it looks like, basically 2 more courses after this course before you take your written comprehensive exam. So you'll have Education 750, Organizational Learning and System Change, and you'll have Education 760, Program Evaluation and Strategic Planning. And then you'll have the opportunity to take your comprehensive exam, and I know that you'll have an opportunity for us to go over what's involved with that. We won't go over what's involved with that in this particular course, but at the end of program evaluation and strategic planning, you'll have a good idea of what's expected for that exam. After you take your comprehensive exam, you're ready to, and you pass, you are ready to begin writing your dissertation. So as a part of that, you enroll, you're a continuously enrolled student as long as you're writing your dissertation. And when you successfully defend your dissertation, you will no longer be a student. So the first part of your proposal phase, Education 781, you're in the dissertation seminar. And then once you pass that proposal, you'll be enrolled in Education 790, the research seminar. Again, you need to pass the exam in order to be enrolled in the dissertation seminar and the research seminar. And once you do that, then you can begin writing your dissertation. Okay, these are just a little bit more about the courses. Education 780, this is the dissertation proposal seminar, where you'll get directions for, it's not that you'll finish, you'll write finish a dissertation proposal in this class because there's not enough time. There's only 8 weeks. But you'll at least become more familiar with what goes into the proposal phase of the writing of the dissertation. So what does it take to write a chapter 1, a chapter 2, and a chapter 3? Once you pass your written exam, Education 71 is your dissertation seminar where you do your initial work with your dissertation chair. Education 790 is the research seminar where you develop your proposal and research methods, you complete your approved research, and you write and defend your completed dissertation. So that's just a brief explanation of what those 2 courses involved. Here's just a little bit about course registration, and I know this is way down the road for you, so you probably won't remember this, but in Education 781, you're automatically registered by the registrar's office. In Education 790 for the research seminar, there are instructions for you to register, and you'll get those instructions from the registrar's office. And you'll register for the course each fall, spring, and summer semester. Here's a little bit about chairs and committees. In this particular class, you'll provide information to me about your proposed dissertation on a form that we make by the university. And that information that's on your form will be used by the School of Education after the course to assign your dissertation chair. The School of Education will assign the chairs. The committees will be formed by your chair once your chair knows who you are as a student and kind of has a little chance to look at your topic. Your committee will form, your chair will form your committee. All committees have terminal degrees in their field, so we all have EDDs or PhDs, and so you don't need to worry about that. All committees, have various, most of them are in the education field, and so, you shouldn't have a concern about that. If they're not in the education field, they are with William Woods University, and they are familiar with dissertations that have been written in the School of Education. The most important thing is, and I talked a little bit about this earlier, is that you are open to regular and continuous ongoing communication between you, your dissertation chair, and your committee. And those arrows are going both ways. That the communication not only happens on your chair end, but you're equally as responsible for communicating with your dissertation chair. So it works both ways. Your chair is your point of communication with the university. You don't necessarily consult with your committee member directly before you defend your proposal or defend your dissertation. Your point of communication is always with your chair, and your chair forwards your paper when needed to your committee members for various input. There are 4 people on a committee, by the way. That includes your chair and 3 other committee members. All committee members participate in the proposal phase, where you're defending your first 3 chapters of your proposal, and the defense, where you're presenting your entire chapter 1 through 5 dissertation to your committee. Again, if you have any questions about that, we can visit more when I see you the next time or during this particular class. Let's talk a little bit about parts of the dissertation now. There is a template that you will see on ALNet that you will use for your assignments. And this template contains all of these components that I'm talking about. So the first part is, you'll see preliminary pages. That includes the title page of the dissertation, the table of contents, and then the main text. There are 5 chapters, and at the end, a bibliography or references page. And then any supplemental materials beyond that in terms of appendices, tables, or figures. Here is the template that I mentioned. The template document on ALNet course page includes all of our dissertation components that we require at William Woods University. Using the template for all of your course assignments in this particular class is encouraged. In other words, you wouldn't want to do it any other way, because this template already has the margins set up for you, the font size, and so forth. It also gives you little hints for what is in a chapter 1, a chapter 2, and a chapter 3. So consider downloading this template right away, and for later use. I mean, you'll be using this even after tonight's class, first thing. So we encourage you to download that template right away. Here are a little bit about the preliminary pages. Contains a signature page, the title of your dissertation, an abstract, which is a short executive summary of your dissertation, who you dedicate the dissertation to, and any acknowledgments. The signature page that includes the signature from your chair and all of your committee members is the formal documentation that your requirements are completed once those signatures are secured and you successfully defended your dissertation. The title page includes the dissertation title. The signature and the title pages must match. So you'll see what I mean by that when you actually pull up the template itself. You can see how they will need to be able to match. They're basically very similar. The abstract summarizes your completed research. Their abstracts are written after the dissertation is completed. You won't write an abstract as a part of this course. And this abstract is different than one that's required on the IRB application. So we'll talk later in this course more about that and what the IRB is. Your dedication is optional if you want to write this, but it's personally thanking family and friends who has been your support network. It's not required for this course. Again, it's optional. Acknowledgments is again optional, not required for this course. But who are you acknowledging in terms of other people? And one of the last things that you will ever write. And so what are you happy about, basically, and who you would like to acknowledge. Here are the main text of the dissertation. These are the titles of the 5 chapters. Chapter 1 is your introduction. Chapter 2 is your lit review. Chapter 3 is research methodology. Chapter 4 is research results, and Chapter 5 is your discussion of all of your findings. So here with the Chapter 1 introduction, this is presenting the big picture of your topic and explains how your research will fit into that particular picture. Chapter 2 is your lit review, and really it's not you conducting any research at all, any of your own research. You're reviewing the research of other researchers. So the review of literature is even more specific about a review of current research regarding your topic. We ask that our students, any research that they review for Chapter 2 be conducted within the last 5 years, because by the time you get done with your dissertation, we want your research to be rather current instead of dated. And so that's something for you to keep in mind. This review of research is details about research methods, different populations used by other researchers concerning your topic, which helps explain their results. And so we'll visit more about that. Here's another slide to kind of help you get your mind wrapped around what Chapter 2 literature review is. We kind of call it the monster chapter because it is the most intensive. So here are some guiding questions that can help you think about doing your Chapter 2. What does the current research indicate about your topic? What are the findings of other researchers? How did they reach their conclusions? And how do their findings pertain to your own research? So guiding questions for you to think about. Typically in our dissertations, when you get ready to write your Chapter 2 with your chair will say to you that your lit review needs to be a minimum of 35 pages. And most of the time it goes longer than that. I mean, I've seen it up to 75 pages for a lit review or 60 pages. But it, again, all depends on the topic. Depends on how much research there is out there on the field. But we always say we know there's research out there on your topic. So it's just a matter of you finding it. And we'll talk about you finding it later this evening as well. Your Chapter 3 methodology is the proposal phase of your dissertation. So how do you propose to do your research? It's always written in the future tense at the proposal phase. Once you pass your proposal phase, your presentation to your committee of your Chapters 1 through 3, and you do your research and you conduct your research and you report the results in Chapters 4, then you go back and change your Chapter 3 to past tense. But for your proposal phase, it's written in future tense because the IRB committee doesn't want to have any indication that you've done any of your own research until they've approved your IRB proposal. And again, we'll talk more about that. Here are some important distinctions between Chapter 2 and 3. Your dissertation proposal for Chapter 2 is about the research that others have done and how it relates to your proposed study. Once you complete your dissertation for Chapter 2, you might have to edit that to reflect any new research that's become available in the field published after your proposal. All right, so Chapter 2, we always say it's always a work in progress, right? In Chapter 3, that is about your proposed research. What will you want to research? And then once you complete your completed dissertation, it will be edited to reflect how you actually conducted your research. So it will be written in the past tense. So this may be a little confusing and a little ahead of the game here, but that's an important distinction between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 that we can talk more about later. Chapter 4 is what you found out. When you conducted that quantitative study, what were your results? Simply as that. And all we want in this particular chapter are the facts. Just the tables, the results of the interviews, and so forth. In Chapter 4, students sometimes want to go down the path of interpreting those results, but that's not what your job is. You just report the facts. Chapter 5 is more about that discussion that you want to have with your interpretation of conclusions, implications for further research, and recommendations that you can make based on your research. And so we won't, in this class, be concerned with Chapters 4 and 5 because you're not going to be conducting any of your own research. So this is later on down the road for you. At the end of your dissertation, you'll have supplemental materials such as your references that will be in APA style, and you're going to have an opportunity to start compiling some references now about a possible topic. So you'll get some practice with that. Appendices, it varies what those appendices are from student to student, but there are things to complement and support your text. Most common appendices that we see are definitely your IRB approval of the study, any messages to possible survey participants, consent forms, survey questions, and maybe some more robust research results if quantitative. A biographical sketch is optional, and you can consult your William Woods University handbook for that. The next part of this slide talks about a syllabus review, but I'm going to do that in a separate video recording that I'll have you watch, so we won't worry about that now. Our next class meeting, what's coming up in this course, I will also go over in the syllabus review, and I will also put this in an email about what's expected for week 2. And this last slide is just a bibliography of some of the sources that we use to put this PowerPoint together. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.